And we're live. Who's running this thing? What's going on? We're missing Pogo today. Welcome back to LOOPCast. We are here Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11. We are joined today in lieu of Pogo, representing the young male perspective from the church, but with more facial hair. This time we have Seamus Coughlin of FreedomToons has joined us today. Welcome.
Yeah, good to be here. I'm glad that I can be your DEI expert on young white men.
Yes.
You can understand our struggles, how we feel, the way the world around us makes assumptions about us, that type of thing. I'm really excited to dive into some of that.
Yeah, we are so pumped to understand more and expand our horizons today. So thank you for joining us.
Just remember, it's your job to be educated by me.
That's right.
That's right. Everyone, and just for the audience too, so that you all know a young white man is speaking. And if you want to understand my lived experience, you have to listen. So
We
might
do.
go correct and not to.
We do. All right. So mastermind behind FreedomToons. I am not sure that our audience is familiar with your voice, Seamus. So I did want to start off with encouraging everyone after this is over to head over to FreedomToons on YouTube and subscribe.
Oh my gosh, those cartoons are so
a little
crazy.
funny. Let's get a taste of of who this is and what his mind where his mind goes. Can we play that first one, Jessica? Our first FreedomToons short.
Yeah. Buckle up.
Yep. Oh, instead we have an ad, of course. That is not FreedomToons.
That's good. We want that. That means YouTube hasn't demonetized me. That's a very good sign.
That's a good thing, but we got to prep it so we don't. It's probably it's like probably a Kamala ad because she's trying to flood the zone. She's so freaked out. People realize
give me money. Listen, Kamala can give me money to run her ads before my videos, and then as soon as someone sees my video, they stop liking her if they were tempted by the ad in the first place.
All right, go. Tale of two candidates. Let's roll.
True.
If you really want to see something that's sad, take a look at what happened with...
Oh, wow. Look, I'm Donald Trump. I think I'm so cool because I got shot. What a loser. Are people seriously pretending that looks cool? He did a photo op because he heard a loud noise? Loser! Ugh, who's impressed with this guy? America will never be defeated! USA! 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 Wow, now he's juggling. When you go to magic camp. Who is this supposed to impress?
He breathed fire.
As if we're supposed to be intimidated by this. Oh my god. Whoa! This just in. Joe Biden just bravely and heroically dropped out of the race with an extremely courageous tweet. Whoa, that's the bravest
Trump's wrestling a
thing
grizzly
I've
bear.
ever heard of. Truly an American hero. Can you imagine anything more impressive? What a legacy!
All right, Jessica. I think we got a taste of it, right? Am I right? That was awesome.
I'm glad you enjoyed. And for those listening, instead of seeing, if you only have the audio version of this podcast, that made no sense. So go over to FreedomToons on YouTube and check out a tale of two candidates.
Oh my gosh. I love all your guys' ad. I'm happy that CatholicVote and the Loop has been a sponsor with you guys.
Thank you.
Putting out good stuff, and I love the one where they're oh my gosh, were you talking about the alterations to the rainbow flag and how many different colors? That one,
thank you.
Stitches. I love that one. It just the one guy's like losing his mind.
Yeah, I came up with that one a while ago. I think I was with a friend, and I just we were just kind of joking around and talking, and the pride flag kept changing, and I just came up with this bit I was like, big flag keeps trying to update the flag so they can keep selling them, and the cartoon turned out really, really well. I'm super happy with the work everyone on the team put into it as well. And it's a very fun cartoon. It's a very fun cartoon for anyone who wants to check it out.
It's a good time. I did want to ask you before we get into it.
Sorry, can I mention one more thing really quickly?
Please, go for it.
So it seems like a joke, but the video is titled something like "Why the Pride Flag Keeps Changing" and then parentheses seizure warning parentheses. But the seizure warning was genuine because the flag changes so much, and I was worried. because
my
if you have too many flashing colors in a video, you do want to have a warning like that. So just what I mentioned, people thought that was a joke, like a commentary on the pride flag or something. It was like, no, I was being
Right.
serious. I actually, it happened to work in a way where it was also funny.
It's
But
an added joke, but it serves as a warning in case anyone says, "Wait a minute."
Right.
Yeah,
The threat
exactly.
is real. The threat is real. So my big question is, do you do all your own voices? Is that all Seamus?
Basically, yeah, I do almost all of the voices.
You do Kamala?
I do Kamala now. Yeah. So
Mm.
originally, I have a voice actress named Britta, and she will do the female voices if we want the cartoon to have a female voice that actually sounds like a woman. There's
Mhm.
certain public figures who I'm happy to do the voice for when they're women, just because the goal is to make them sound silly and goofy. But
Mhm.
especially if the female character is supposed to be someone we want the audience to take seriously, I'll have an actual woman voice them. And so in that case, Britta, she's no soup for Knowles on Twitter.
Oh,
She does
nice.
basically all of our female voices. And then for the male voices, I basically do all of them. Sometimes I'll bring someone else in to do a different voice here or there, but in most circumstances, it's me. Tim Pool
Mhm.
will beg me to voice Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
So the way he actually keeps his operation going is we pay him to voice Dr. Fauci on FreedomToons.
Got it.
And so every once in a while he'll hit me up, oh Seamus, we don't have enough money, we're not going to be able to get everyone paid, they're going to shut us down. Can you please give me another voice? And I'll just write a little role for him to voice Dr. Fauci, and I'll throw a
Okay,
couple bucks at the
we're
beginning.
totally clipping that little insight into the back
It's
the
true.
back
That's
room.
actually what happens, and you can ask Tim about it. You can ask Tim about it. He'll confirm that that's true.
We'll have Tim on next time Josh or Tom is off. Oh man, this is great. Okay, well, I want to dig a little more into you with satire and humor and kind of how you see all that eventually, but we have a lot to get to today.
Sure.
We are in the final countdown, y'all. Who has election exhaustion already? But we are pushing to the end. Josh is never tired of elections. Okay, we understand that. You are a myth among men. This is amazing.
Freaking nature, yes.
But Kamala is making her closing. Is making her closing argument, and it's a banger. And she went on Anderson Cooper to do a town hall this week to give us a sense of how she's going to close this thing out and turn her sagging campaign around. There were some really good moments here. Good meaning more of the same. So I just want to run a couple of these. Jess, let's start with the tax question. When we roll.
In terms of their taxes. Right now, it is well documented that some of the richest people in our country have gotten away with a zero tax rate.
But if you're earning $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 under your plan, there's a good chance your taxes go up.
We can't have this conversation without knowing it's a very complicated situation, right? If you're talking about a small business owner, I'm going to cut taxes for small businesses, right? Because I know that they need the overhead, the money that they need for overhead to actually benefit the growth of their business, which benefits our economy as a whole. In terms of,
my gosh, this is like Hazlitt.
By the way, the thing is, like, as far as I'm concerned with politics, I believe, like, I think there's an understanding in American people that politicians stretch the truth and they kind of lie a little bit here and there. I mean, like, whatever, both sides do it. Fine. But there's so many lies. I mean, the abortion lies are the most egregious.
Right.
We've dealt with them on the show before. Like, oh, she died because of Georgia's pro-life law. It's like, no, she died of sepsis because she couldn't get, hospital wouldn't see her in time. But like on taxes, this is one where they again lie with such impunity. It's like, oh, a billionaire pays a lower tax rate than a school teacher or a waitress. It's like what they're doing is, lying. What they're saying is the margin, like the effective tax rate. So if you're a billionaire, you're paying like 38% or whatever the highest tax rate is on everything you make above like $200,000. You're paying a lot on it. But if they're still just like you and me, when the first $10,000 you make, you don't pay anything on it because you have a personal deduction. And then after that, it's at 10% for the next $100,000 or next $10,000. And then you pay like 15% for the next 20 grand above that. So on the margin, as you make more money, you pay taxes at a higher rate. But overall, so like I'm paying, let's say 25% on, and if I got an extra $1,000, I have to pay 25% on that. That's my effective marginal tax rate. but that doesn't mean all of my income is taxed at 25%. And the same thing with the billionaire. So their effective tax rate might be, not 40%. It might be like, let's say 20%. And then you could say, well, how come this school teacher's paying 25%? That school teacher's paying 25% on their additional tax money.
Right.
Not all, so they're comparing one person's marginal rates, the extra $100 they pay, how much they pay in taxes, to someone else's, the entire rate. It's such phony baloney. They know they're lying. And they just don't care.
Right.
Yeah. It's completely and totally dishonest. One trick that they'll pull is they'll point out the fact correctly that many people who are ultra wealthy get a lot of their income off of either stock dividends or selling their shares. Right. And they'll say, well, our capital gains tax is relatively low, so these people are paying a lower tax rate than public school teachers.
Right.
But the reason they're wrong about that, and the reason that's a really dishonest trick, is because all of the money that those people invested into those stocks in the first place was already taxed at an income tax rate.
Right.
So if you're a wealthy person and you're making, over $250,000 a year, you're already getting taxed at the top marginal tax rate. Let's say you live somewhere like California. Top marginal tax rate's 37%, and then the effective top marginal tax rate with your state deduction is going to be like 35%. Once you factor in the California state taxes, you end up at a point where you're paying close to 50% of your taxes just to straight income tax. That's not including property taxes.
Exactly.
That's not including sales taxes, right? That's also not including the hidden tax, also known as inflation, which redistributes wealth from some groups to other groups by devaluing the currency that they hold. And so what you end up having is people investing the surplus of income that they have into the stock market. And even though the money they're investing in the stock market has already been taxed somewhere close to 50%, when they end up earning some money in the market, they're expected to pay another tax on top of that. And Democrats will isolate this second, third, or fourth tax that they're now paying on their money and say, well, like the third or fourth tax they end up having to pay is greater than the income tax rate that a teacher pays. But it's totally dishonest because you're excluding the vast majority of other taxes they've already paid.
Right, exactly. And then there's the stat that's well known, if you look at the total federal income tax, like what the money the federal government pulls in, the top 1% of earners, they contribute almost half of that. So that's like, it's like 45.8% or something of all the money the federal government brings in comes from that top 1%.
So we didn't mean to bore the listeners to tears.
I know.
We're just saying Democrats are lying their pants off.
They're lying is the bottom line.
It's like the top 10% pay something like 90% of all income tax. It is just a lie that rich people don't pay their fair share. It's a complete and total fabrication. It's entirely untrue. And I just want to mention this, if the viewers aren't already bored enough. I'm going to bring up a very exciting term that's been thrown around by the Kamala campaign a lot. Project 2025. Donald Trump hasn't read Project 2025 and he doesn't endorse it. However, it would massively slash taxes for most middle-class people. If you look at the tax policy section in Project 2025, the vast majority of people in the middle class would have their taxes slashed by it because it proposes a two-tier income tax system where you have a 15% rate and a 30% rate rather than a number of different tax rates across the board, or a flat tax. It seems to me to be one of the fairest tax proposals I've ever seen that would cut taxes for the most people, aside from Donald Trump's plan that he's flirting with to just completely abolish income tax in favor of tariffs and sales taxes.
That was a fun development this week. Everyone on Slack went, woohoo, no income tax. So closing argument there.
Tariffs maybe wouldn't work on sales tax though, because the seniors would revolt. But I like that he's talking like this. This is good.
Yeah, this is a good direction to go. So we started with the economy, but she kept going, and Anderson Cooper starts to get a little tired of things. So let's play the border wall clip from this town hall. If we could do that.
This is going to be a humdinger, I bet.
You're going to love this one, Mercer. This is one of your favorite topics.
I'm just curious about what she has to say about anything. She's very insightful.
Yeah. Teach us, Kamala. Teach us.
Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on it? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
You don't think it's stupid anymore?
All right, cut that off. I am not afraid of good ideas.
We need a legal process. Well, you're providing an additional process for people who are also illegal. So it's like, hello?
And not only that, right? But this border bill that she keeps bringing up and saying that Donald Trump sabotaged was really a Ukraine aid package with border patrol and border funding tacked onto the end of it. It was something like 20 billion was supposed to go to the border, and then 90 to 100 billion was supposed to go to Israel and Ukraine. It's like, that is not a border bill. That is you playing politics.
Well, it's a
with
Russia
one of the most
border
fundamental
bill.
duties of the government.
Yeah, Russia, Ukraine.
He's really worried about Russia's borders.
No, yeah, exactly. Russia and Ukraine's borders and Israel's borders matter so much more to them than our southern border.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Well, I mean, Anderson, he heard her, he listens to her, and then he gave her an opportunity to maybe talk about, has she made any errors in the last 3.5 years that she could have maybe done something about the border? So he was pretty generous. Can we just open up, do one more clip here?
It's hilarious.
Is there something you can point to in your life, political life or in your life in the last 4 years, that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Is there something you can point to in your
honestly,
life, political life or in your life in the last 4 years, that you think is a mistake?
Not even a joke, though. She is amongst the laziest politicians ever. She doesn't study up on the issues. Her staff go crazy over this. And they finally, then she berates them when they do things that they, like when she goes out and does a media hit like this and embarrasses herself because she's an idiot. Then she yells at her staff like they're the fault. And that's why her staff quit. She's got like a 90% turnover in her staff because she treats them like dirt. Like
it was their fault. She totally crashed and burned.
Yeah. And then Anderson Cooper, he's like, it was hilarious. Actually, I don't know if you saw this, but he said all these people were complaining that I wasn't helping her in the interview. And it's like, that's not my job. I'm supposed to ask questions and the candidates are supposed to answer them. I'm not, he goes, this is hilarious. He goes, I'm not with MSNBC.
Oh, it's so funny.
Well, so here's the thing.
So good.
There's a massive tone shift we've seen from a lot of people in the media. I am not so bold as to make a prediction about what the outcome of the election will be. After 2016, I promised I was never going to try to predict any election.
I was going to make you make a prediction. Darn it. There goes that segment. All right.
Yeah, so I won't be making a prediction, but what I will say is it seems to me that the left-wing press is predicting that Trump is going to win. It seems to me that they're predicting that. And it could just be their increased level of neuroticism. It could be some internal polling. It could be that they thought Kamala had it in the bag and now she doesn't. But the way they're going after her and treating her indicates that they're not afraid that she's going to be vindictive and exclude them from White House press events once she does become president, because she and her staff remember that they grilled her on the campaign trail.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, after this town hall, we saw the CNN panel, all of them. David Axelrod was ripping into her performance, and they were brutal on that. I don't know. We could.
Well, to Seamus's point, I think they actually think, and I think they're right on this, that they're actually helping her because she has she had that period of about 2-3 weeks off the whole sugar high where she wasn't doing any media hits, no press conference, not talking to anyone in the media, and she was just kind of coasting. And that was fine and all good and well when the polls were good. But then when the polls came back down to earth and voters were like, okay, we actually expect her to give some answers now. Can we find out what she really stands on? And the press were like, yikes. And so they start asking her questions, and then she gets mad at them for asking questions. It's like, look, I mean, they actually probably want her to give honest, good, strong answers so that the poll numbers will go up. I honestly, at the end of the day, think Anderson Cooper wants her to win, but like, you can't force it. And yeah, I think when all is said and done, the press would be like, look, the voters wanted these questions. They wanted to know. We asked the candidate, and the candidate didn't seem able to answer it. So they're going to exonerate themselves, and they'll be right.
Right.
Well, regardless of what's going to happen, whether the press is shielding her because or not shielding her anymore because they think she's going to lose, you all got to get out there and vote. Everyone watching this is not in the bag. The election's not over. Get out there and vote.
I voted yesterday. I was very excited. Brought my baby along. It was great. I was there at the polls.
And I already voted in Michigan.
Hey,
Michigan! I got my my Rosary, Michigan shirt on. Yeah, it's the state of Michigan wrapped up in the rosary here. I got this shirt.
Lord, let it be.
That's how they know. That's how you know they tore up your ballot, man. And they saw it. They saw that. They're like, absolutely not. There's going to be a Christo-fascist takeover if we let that.
I brought my baby in gender neutral clothing so that they would be kept guessing if I was like a lib mom or a conservative mom. So I didn't want them to tear up my ballot or talk.
I mean, people do have these kind of concerns or whatever. And look, I had someone, my neighbor, literally was just like, what are they going to do with the ballots and all this other kind of stuff? And I said, listen, I know the people who count the ballots in my town. These are good people. They are honest, good Christians. They're good people of faith. A lot of the poll workers in a lot of the rural areas are really authentically good people. Yeah. And so, don't be irrational about this kind of stuff. Now, when it comes to the city of Detroit or Philadelphia, I got questions, but, so just get out there, vote, make it too big to rig.
Yep. I love it. Yes. Get out and vote and pray. Please pray. We're going to be starting a novena here at Catholic Vote on Monday, I believe. So make sure you're checking the loop, and the prayer will be so short. Everyone can do this.
You'll love it.
Check the loop every day, scroll down, pray the prayer. Let's get some prayer and action going here. So we're coming into, I guess, what we call the closing argument phase. And we had our town hall meeting. The press, maybe they're not covering for Kamala as much anymore. But she has a closing argument, and the first part of it seems to be, if Liz Cheney can hold her nose and do it, you can vote for me too. So that's the message to conservative pro-lifers. The other part of it, abortion, abortion, abortion. And then, of course, we drop the F-bomb. That's right. Kamala's closing argument is fascism. So can we get that speech up there? Let's just take a quick look at what she had to say. It's her last message. Is it coming? It's coming. Here she is. Oh, boy.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials. It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler The man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from
Oh
the
my
people
gosh.
who worked with him side by
Okay.
side in the.
I think we're done. This is it.
Oh, sorry, you go.
No, you go.
All right. So there's a few things to point out there. Firstly, she's talking about how our country's so divided, and how could Trump call anyone in America the enemy within? And then she's saying half of the country is voting for fascism. So I don't know how you square those two things. But the other thing that's hilarious to me, in typical Kamala fashion, she mentions Adolf Hitler and then explains why he's evil. Like, we all know what Hitler did. She just likes to waste time adding superfluous information. You don't need to convince the people listening that Hitler was bad. Like, Adolf Hitler, who killed millions of people and hundreds of thousands of American people as well. We're aware of that. It's so funny to me, though, that she still feels a need to explain that as if people weren't aware why Hitler was bad before she brought him up. She really comes off when she speaks as a high schooler who's trying to reach the word count on an essay that they're writing. And she's just filling the paper with information that we already knew or didn't need.
Yeah.
It's just amazing that Republicans have had this wonderful ability to keep electing presidents who are Hitler. Because
how do we keep doing it?
I mean, they called John McCain Hitler. They called George W. Bush Hitler. They called Reagan Hitler. And people are like, oh, you're just making this stuff up. Democrats called Dwight Eisenhower Hitler, the man who literally defeated Hitler. They called Hitler. I'm not kidding. Someone said, "Oh, you're making this up." And Phil Kerpen, he's just awesome. He's like, "No, dude." And he posts on Twitter a telegram that was sent to him by a senator, a United States senator, who was so mad that this Republican would send troops to Arkansas to desegregate the schools. He said, the elementary rights of citizens by applying tactics which have been copied from the manual issued by the officers of Hitler's stormtroopers. Literally.
Yeah.
It's the Democrats' only line.
Just going to throw this out, guys. If every Republican is a Hitler, then no one's a Hitler, maybe. Just kind of an idea. Right. But also, what do we got? Like, if he is Hitler, right, then aren't you basically asking somebody to kill him? Aren't 100%. You begging somebody to assassinate?
Actually, we've had 2 attempts at least.
Yeah. So thank you, Kamala Harris. And, you have blood on your hands. This is such crap. Like, don't do this. Like, maybe don't just say, oh, I might be losing an election, so I'm just going to say that the guy I'm against would exterminate 6 million Jews. Like, the guy was already president for 4 years. Like, there were no pogroms. He was so anti-Jewish that he moved the capital to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's complete and total nonsense, though. It doesn't have to make sense. They only use words in an emotional way. It doesn't have to map onto anything in reality. And to your point, part of what's also hilarious is the fact that not only do they keep calling people Hitler, but they start to pretend as if the last guy they called Hitler was a good guy.
Exactly.
So it's like, well, John McCain was one of the good Republicans. Dick Cheney, George Bush.
Campaigning with Dick Cheney.
To be honest, I think comparing any of these people to Hitler is absolutely ridiculous. But that said, the worst of that group of people is Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney is a million times worse than Donald Trump by every single metric.
Yes.
If you value human life, if you think it's wrong to kill innocent people, if you don't like warmongering, then Dick Cheney is far beyond Donald Trump. But he's the good guy because he's endorsing Kamala. And here, I'll mention one more thing about Dick Cheney. The Democrats, they were going on and on and on and on about gun violence. They had their whole news cycle about gun violence where they were saying gun violence is terrible. We need to ban guns. Republicans don't actually care about people getting shot and killed because they don't want to repeal the Second Amendment or basically make it totally pointless by regulating firearm ownership out of existence. And then a week later, Dick Cheney endorses Kamala Harris. They're all celebrating. Dick Cheney shot a guy, right? Like, if there's any politician who you don't celebrate while you're in the midst of talking about how we need gun control, The one who shot a guy,
But Seamus,
probably.
But did you see this though in Missouri? Like, this is crazy. So like the Democratic candidate for Senate in Missouri, he wants to show he's shucks, I'm a
Man.
folksy guy. I'm going to bring a reporter and we're going to go to the shooting range with Adam Kinzinger, the never Trump psychopath. And they're shooting guns and they're looking in their scopes, which is kind of hilarious because the target is 10 feet away.
10
like,
feet
why
away,
do you need a scope 10 feet away? And they're shooting and there's like
steel.
Yes,
Right.
they're shooting at steel 10 feet away. Like, hello.
That's idiotic.
And they also had like weapon explosives right underneath them, like
on the table, right?
And so one of the reporter that was coming to take a look at this, he got hit by a ricochet of the bullet. Like,
That's
these guys are
insane.
idiots. I mean, it's make this stuff up. I mean, like,
Just
you keep lecturing
all the rhetoric.
safety. Hello.
It's just for all the rhetoric about how unsafe we're making journalists. Of course, it's a Democratic politician who ends up going out and shooting a journalist.
The irony. I love it. Yeah. And of course, I won't even bother. Is her closing argument effective enough? Is it going to work? I think we can all surmise your opinion on that one.
No, she changed my mind.
Yeah.
I have to vote for her now.
All right.
I think you're teasing me.
You
humor guy.
He's funny. Get him out of here. No, just kidding. So it is FAQ Friday. If anyone in the chat would like to drop questions, we will get to those toward the end of the show, at the bottom of the hour. Is that correct? Does that sound right? And
sure.
So drop those in the chat. Rosie will move them over to the show notes. Just wanted to drop that in there. One thing I did want to ask you about, Josh, in particular, Seamus, you can chime in too. Abortion is definitely the issue on which Harris has the edge on Donald Trump. And obviously, trafficking in lies. You might have seen some of her ads that she's put out about, like, obviously pregnant women writhing on tables, dying.
I see
on
every
these
ad.
ads.
I'm in Michigan. I see every ad.
You see it all. And recently, so this week, Newsweek came out with a new study, and it says abortion was cited as a key issue. It passes immigration as the second most important issue for voters in these last weeks. And so the argument on Newsweek, of course, is, well, yeah, the economy is still the most important issue for voters, and Donald Trump is leading on the economy. But instead of immigration being number 2 concern, now abortion is number 2 concern. So do you see this as something that could move the needle? And does it mean that her ads and her rhetoric on abortion are being effective in gaining traction for her in these last days?
I think Donald Trump has convinced enough of the, Americans, unfortunately, I wish Americans were as pro-life as I was. Obviously, that's not the case just yet. We're seeing these elections where, like the Kansas and Ohio amendments where voters, both in reddish states, they voted to have abortion legalized. And I think that's tragic. And so Donald Trump said, look, I'm going to let you decide this in the states. That's the whole point of Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade made it so that states had no authority or no ability to protect unborn children at all. And so by appointing conservatives to the Supreme Court, 3 of them, Donald Trump was finally able to get Roe v. Wade overturned. With the Dobbs decision, that gives the permission for states like Idaho, Texas, Florida to pass laws to protect their children. And I think that's wonderful. And we have about 20 states that protect them. I wish it was 50 states. Mm-hmm. If we're up to Kamala Harris and she gets elected president, it's going to be 0. She has promised, if she's elected, she will have the Senate nuke the filibuster just for abortion, and they'll codify Roe v. Wade, and 0 states will protect unborn life. It will be legal in all of the states. So Idaho, Florida, Texas, where they have strong pro-life laws, they're all gone in January if Kamala is elected and she has a Democratic Senate. So that's a terrible thing. Obviously, I would love for 50 states to protect life. 20 isn't enough. It needs to be more. But it goes down to 0 if she gets elected. Now, she's been hammering this issue, hammering it crazy, but she's not gotten to that 51, 52%. In fact, she's kind of stuck right where she's at, because I think Trump is like convinced enough voters to saying, hey, look, I'm not making it so 50 states are banning abortion. I'm letting the states decide. And the American people they thought, okay, yeah, we're good with that compromise. And they're not flocking to her campaign because they realize the border's crazy, inflation's crazy, and they don't support her candidacy. So she was hoping this would be her get elected card, but it's not working out that way.
Yeah, I think that there's truth in that. I want to add something else, which is I firmly believe that if Donald Trump does lose this election over the abortion issue, it's his fault, because the reality is I don't think he has been messaging on it in an effective way. I believe what the Republicans should be doing is taking into account that, as you said a moment ago, yes, most Americans are not as pro-life as we are. Unfortunately, everyone here believes that at the moment of fertilization, you have a new human life, and any contraceptive or abortion pill or abortion procedure that ends the life of that unborn child is criminal and should not be allowed in any state. That's what we believe. Most voters don't believe that. Most voters think that abortion should be legal up until 6 weeks or 12 weeks, at least sometime within the first trimester. But here's the thing: even though most voters, even if by a narrow margin, believe that, if you ask people, and I know this because I've done this, right? I have done Timcasts for on and off for about 4 years now. I've talked to a lot of different people from different parts of the political spectrum, and many of them will say things like, yeah, abortion is wrong, but I'm okay with it in the first trimester, or I'm okay with it in instances of rape and incest, that type of thing. But then you ask them a simple question. Okay, so I get that, but let's say you only have two options. Option one: abortion is always illegal. You can never do it. There are no exceptions. Or option two: abortion is legal up until the point of birth. If you have to choose one of those two policies, which would you choose? Every single person I've spoken to has said, okay, yes, if those are the choices, then I would rather choose the policy that is completely and entirely pro-life. So I think what Donald Trump needs to start talking about more, or should have been talking about more, is just how insane and radical and unattractive, even to moderately pro-abortion voters, Kamala Harris's policy position is on this.
He hasn't done that enough in the last few weeks, but he did make that point in the debate, though. I got to give him credit. He did say it was too extreme. And he talked about the governor of Virginia, not the current one, Youngkin, but the previous one, who said, well, the baby will be born and then we'll decide whether or not, So he did hit that. He could have done a little bit more in the final stretch, but he did mention it in the debate. And when it comes to the presidential debate this time, and then also in 2016, when he talked about, 7th, 8th, 9th month, he's in those presidential debates, he's been the best at pushing the issue, because you look at George W. Bush and McCain and Romney, and they would just say like the most poll-tested, safe little cozy word. Oh, welcome to law and protected in life. It's like, what? Speak plainly. What the hell are you saying?
I agree that when Trump has messaged effectively on this, he's messaged more effectively than any Republican candidate in recent history, at least most of them. I won't say all of them. But that said, there were obviously a couple of missteps he took when he was saying that in Florida, people should vote against, for or against Amendment 4. I'm blanking now. Amendment 4 is the one that legalizes it.
He gave a little shade on it at first, but he didn't say he was going to vote. And he didn't say to vote against it, but the point he was trying to make was like he thought DeSantis went too far with his very, very good pro-life law, which I like DeSantis for doing that. I disagree with Trump on that. And I don't like that Trump was kind of throwing shade on the pro-life issue in 2022. In the immediate aftermath of a Roe v. Wade reversal, of course, we're going to be some backlash at the polls in the next election. Political parties should understand that. So I think he was kind of clunky there and not helpful and not doing good. But overall, his record was great in office, and he's kind of pulled back from some of the dumber points I think he made last year. So
and I'll say this. I know we have to move on, but one of the most effective ways I've heard abortion message, or the abortion issue messaged, was when he was debating Hillary Clinton in 2016, or possibly it was even in it was in 2016, and she brought up abortion, and he asked about abortion at the end of pregnancy, or mentioned that the Democrats want it to be allowed at the very end of pregnancy and how they're killing these babies. And she says, I think women should always be able to make choices about their own bodies, kind of the same rehearsed line. And his response was, you ought to be ashamed. That was the most effective way I have seen the issue approached by any politician. That is exactly what you have to say. You don't go, technically the embryology says, like that's fine if you're debating someone on the philosophy of it. But if you're on a debate stage with another politician and they say, yeah, abortion should be legal at 9 months, you say, that's disgusting. You should be embarrassed. I can't believe you just said that.
I want to
Huge
echo
fucking
that because one of my big things here on the Loopcast has been we need to turn the shame table around because
Yeah.
for the most part, conservatives are so deferential and respectful.
Mhm.
Actually, we believe in civility and we want a peaceful society. And so when people are like, oh my gosh, how could you support racism, homophobia? I'm like, well, actually, and sometimes you just got to say, piss off. You're
Yeah.
lying. We're not, this is garbage.
Mercer.
You should
Yeah.
be ashamed. You support a candidate that thinks you should be killed. And by the way, Kamala upped the ante this week because they asked her, do you believe in any exceptions?
Oh, right.
Would you, if you're pushing for this national abortion law, would you at least exempt religious organizations?
Like religious conscience.
No.
No.
She did. It's
right.
a fundamental right. So she is going to force Catholic hospitals to shut down if they refuse to kill babies. Catholics need to know that. And so some of these Catholics are like, well, I personally pro-life, but whatever, I'm supporting a candidate. If you're supporting a candidate that will shut down Catholic hospitals, that means you support abortion if you support that candidate.
Gloves are off. Masks come off. Yeah. Josh, I think with your like angry liberal white woman voice that you just did, you were auditioning for a FreedomToons episode there. That was pretty good. I like that. That's good. I liked it. Anyway, Seamus is listening.
That's right. I'll have to take it to heart and consider it. I'll throw one more thing out there about this idea of, I'm personally in favor of pro-life, the pro-life cause, but I think abortion should be allowed. I just want to say one thing, aside from that being contradictory, saying like, I'm personally against murder, but it should be legal. Just know that whenever the left takes power anyway, you are not allowed to hold personal opinions that are different from regime policy.
Yes.
Right.
You will be made to submit. You will be made to obey.
Basically, everything in Kamala's closing argument speech there about how you have to bend the knee. I was like, wait, that's exactly what you tried to do to David Daleiden Daniel. Oh my gosh, the Planned Parenthood dude. Thank you, David Daleiden out in California, and she's just describing herself.
Story, by the way.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, strange times make strange bedfellows, and we have an ad. I saw some people talking about it in the chat already, and we wanted to so RFK Jr. Here he is. Buckle up. We have a wonderful ad. This is kind of one of our closing efforts here. Let's play that.
My Catholicism provided the foundation for a lifetime of striving to perfect my personal relationship with God. Two features of Catholicism are the notions of original sin and the concept of a forgiving God. Our job is to strive to perfect ourselves through conscious contact with our Creator, knowing that in human form, we're never going to achieve perfection. We'll always slip, but each time we get to get up and strive again. The same's true for America. Even when we don't live up to our national ideals, we get to remedy our shortfalls through unified action. That hope has led me to support Donald Trump. President Trump has promised to take bold action on our economy, on the border, and on restoring children's health. The Democratic Party has become the party of war, censorship, and corruption. Catholics may disagree on many issues, but we must find a way to love our children more than we hate each other. I hope you'll join me in supporting Donald Trump.
Wow.
That's beautiful. Okay, Seamus, you are the master of rhetoric and political persuasion. So how would you evaluate this ad?
Well, as the master of political persuasion and rhetoric, what I would have done is drawn a cartoon of my opponent screaming instead. Screaming.
After watching the ad, how dare they?
That's my level of rhetoric. But no, honestly, I think that it was a really good ad overall. Obviously, again, as Catholics here, we know that RFK has some positions which are very much not in line with what the Catholic Church considers to be permissible for someone who is identifying themselves as a practicing Catholic. But of course, most Americans who call themselves Catholic don't actually use the label in that way. So it's good if you're able to grab onto that group and get them to vote for something less terrible than they would otherwise vote for. I think in terms of rhetoric, it was very effective in that sense. It's also very effective that he's a Kennedy. I think it was, I can't take credit for this observation. I think it was Charlie Kirk who said this on Twitter. I thought it was quite funny. He said, I knew Trump was good at making deals, but I can't believe he was able to trade Cheney for a Kennedy. I think that's exactly right. The fact that you have Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, other people who are former members of the Democratic Party who think that the party's gotten too extreme, rightfully so, coming over to the Republican Party helps it appear as if we have a very large tent, and that makes voters feel more comfortable. Now, of course, we all know here in this room, and our audience knows, we'll keep this among us and our audience. Don't tell anyone that I said this. Don't let the
You got it.
Republican Party know that we feel this way. Keep this on the down low. But we don't want the tent to be that big in terms of policy decision making, because then nothing can get done. There are certain issues where we can all agree when RFK says we need to care about our children more than we hate each other. That's true. I think the right and the left can agree on things like making America healthy again, having the FDA be a bit more strict about the kinds of food that they let us put in our body instead of just pumping garbage out. I think we can basically all agree that transing children is mutilation. It's disgusting. I think even most Democrats can agree with that. So that's great. But then there are other policies where it's like, okay, there actually is a pretty narrow bandwidth of perspectives we can get people to agree on here, like with the abortion issue. We can't have the tent be too big. I mean, it's like, I want everyone in the tent, but this just don't kill babies, and that's the only policy we have room for.
I think the tent thing, though, I would say, I mean, like, one of the things you're looking at the numbers and the way people are being persuaded in the campaign. The one issue that's moving the needle probably the most, they're saying, and this is not me, this is like Politico and all that other stuff, is the trans issue. This is an issue upon which suburban white women who are like, we're so solidly behind Biden because they're like, oh, I can't stand these guys, Trump's tweets.
Yeah.
But then they're like, I don't know if I really want like dudes in my girls' locker room and playing against me and my kids in volleyball. And so this is an issue of like, yeah, I'm not so cool with this. And they're like, you know what? I survived 4 years of Trump. I can survive another 4 years. And so they're moving. We started with the camp. That was our biggest, CatholicVote's biggest campaign. We spent a ton of money on the swing states on this issue of trans stuff. Right. And so did American Principles Project, those guys, Terry Schilling. And so we kind of led the way on this stuff. And then the numbers started to move. And then what happened? Donald Trump opened up his wallet and his campaign spent a lot of money on ads. And so we kind of, sometimes, the Republican Party is a risk averse about social issues, but we were like, no, the American people are with us on this issue. We can win on this issue, and we need to do it to save our kids. And thankfully, the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, saw the writing on the wall, and they've embraced this and bringing in this issue, like making children healthy again. You can talk about like what is in our cereals, but then you can also say what Big Pharma is trying to do to mutilate our kids' bodies, wrap it all together in a big tent. So that's one way you could do it, I think, effectively.
Yeah, and I think another issue that the big tent works for is just the issue of the First Amendment, right? And censorship, free speech. We didn't touch on that much here.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear that the Democratic Party is, like you said, the party of censorship, right? At this point. And, for all of us in the world of journalism, that's kind of a necessary protection we need to have.
Okay, so I'm going to answer a really quick question that was in the chat. Okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Because Kamala Harris made that speech talking about Trump being Hitler, and she made it at the White House. And so people in the chat were asking whether or not this was a violation of the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act I'm actually very familiar with because my father was a postmaster, and people would be like, oh, hey, why don't you go to the convention? He's like, no, I can't go to any political convention. It's a violation of the Hatch Act. And it was. They actually finally amended the Hatch Act like in the 90s so that you could actually go on your own private time, go to a political convention. But before that, you couldn't do it. And the Hatch Act makes it so that when you go to the post office or some government office, they can't be wearing Kamala or Trump stickers or something like that, because that would be basically saying I'm using my job or position in a way to advance a political candidate. That's against the law. It's a violation of the Hatch Act. Now, hold on.
Sure.
Now, a congressman or a senator, if they're going to be doing anything that's trying to advance their election, they have to leave Capitol Hill building and go to down the street, and then they can make a phone call or they can go say, vote for me. But they can't do it inside of their government offices because that also would be a violation of the Hatch Act. Okay. Now, by law, the Hatch Act, from the day it started, 1933, it has always exempted two people. the president and vice president of the United States. They are exempt from the law from the very beginning. When Congress was first deciding to do this, they had in mind, they don't want postal employee workers. They don't want someone in the War Department. They don't want anybody with a, promoting their favorite politician's campaign while they are working as a civil servant. So that is the nature and basis for the Hatch Act. And the congressmen do that as an extra step because they don't want to run the risk of being associated with that. But the president and the vice president of the United States have always been exempt from the Hatch Act because that was when Congress first passed that. They never wanted to include the president and the vice president because those two people are elected by the people themselves. And when they go and make a speech, it shouldn't be like, okay, I want to talk about the important stuff as they visit Dallas or something like that. And they don't want people picking them apart and saying, oh, well, you just advanced your campaign. Let's do a lawsuit. No. So they are always and have always been exempt.
All right. That was great Civics 101. Thank you.
That is good. I could be, so I'm curious about this. I could be totally mistaken and misremembering this, but didn't the Post Office Workers Union endorse a candidate? Haven't some of these public sector unions endorse candidates?
Public sector unions have every right as an association to endorse candidates, but they couldn't wear any buttons when they go to work.
Okay.
That's what the Hatch Act refers to. Now, first of all, Hillary Clinton was first lady of the United States back in 2000, and she was running for an elective office for Senate in New York. And so she was maybe a little bit not careful enough, but she would use campaign funds to campaign. She couldn't use taxpayer funds. So she had to be a little bit cagey because she's not the president. She's not the vice president. She's not covered under the Hatch Act.
Yeah.
Her husband could have gone vote for Hillary and done whatever she wanted to and would not run under any violation.
You had a little pronoun slip there, Josh. Was that on purpose? She? What? What's going on?
That's violent.
All right, that was violent. We have another FAQ from the chat. This is from our friend Tom McCluskey. Tom McCluskey says, hey, when Tom or Erica are out, you have celebrities come in to fill their spots. And when Josh is out, you just have tinfoil Tom. We love you, Tom. It's because the people demand you.
We just want somebody who's rated one of the top lobbyists in Washington, D.C. by Roll Call Magazine. So,
That's right. Well, we're just
and bald is beautiful.
Bald is beautiful. We try to really stick to identity politics here. So I think we got an email this week and they were like, I love the different perspectives on your show. You have the young guy perspective. You have the old guy perspective. And you have, get this, the scholarly mother perspective. So thank you, everyone.
I think they said the scholarly Viking, actually. If you look at the notes, I think that's what they said.
Oh man. All right. Whoa, we're coming into it here. One more. This is a fun one. FAQ Friday from the chat. Your favorite spooky season fall movie that you catch every year. Josh over on the Hallmark Channel, right? No, just kidding. Favorite scary movie. Let's do favorite scary movie.
I don't like movies that are traditionally scary or horror. I don't, but like suspense or that I actually find
suspense
interesting.
Is cool.
Yeah, I even then I don't watch suspenseful movies that often because usually when I want to, like I'm in politics and it's kind of a grind. And when I want to watch a movie, I'd like to watch something funny or sports or someone killing someone. Like I don't want to like. Here's the guy and he, jumps out and scares the crap out of you. I'm like, dude, I want to relax.
There's enough of that in politics.
Yeah, I need to decompress. And I'm like, come on, I got to get that heart rate and blood pressure down, So I'm not. Right. And actually, I just want to say I'm a big thumbs down and the whole Halloween, extending it for a whole darn month. I mean, like, the trick or treating is fine, but like some people are taking it too far. I mean, like in my town, like, you get like these massive skeletons, like 10 feet tall and like, and the creepy music. And it's like, dude, it's for kids to go door to door, ask for candy bars.
My 5-year-old is terrified all the time. She's just so scared all month driving through the neighborhoods at night. Oh my gosh. Anyway, what about you, Seamus? Do you like scary movies?
So I like scary movies, certain scary movies that have to deal more with ghosts and demons. I don't like slasher films. My perspective on horror is actually very similar to my perspective on comedy. I think that if your punchline is bodily fluids, you're not a good writer.
Right.
And so with horror films where someone is just slicing people up, it's gross to me. I'm not captivated by it. I don't find it interesting. But if it's something about ghosts or demons where it really gets into your head and frightens you, I like that stuff. So I would say if there's one horror film I like to watch around this time of year or have. I recently rewatched The Conjuring. Really enjoy that film.
Oh, I've never
Very,
saw
very
that.
good horror film.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Catholic too, or pretty Catholic as far as Hollywood goes.
Yeah, like the most extreme scary movies that I ever could sit through were the M. Night Shyamalan's.
Sixth
Yeah,
Sense.
Sixth
That's a
Sense.
great
That was
film.
like,
I love that
yeah,
film.
that's a really great one. I also love John Krasinski's Quiet Place 1, especially. 2 was pretty good.
It's a
The
good
prequel
film.
was terrible. The prequel was really just vapid, but yeah, Quiet Place was a good one. But yeah, I can't do the gore and all that stuff. Like I deal with bodily fluids all day long with the diapers and the snot and the oh my god, I don't need it in my
Well, I don't even
movie
like. I'm
time.
not even like saying I'm pro The Exorcist, okay? But at least that did. I mean, there was the vomit and the head twist, but for the most part, it was because it was talking about the demonic that it was actually scary. It wasn't as much slashing and chainsaw massacre like that. The Exorcist is actually more terrifying because of what it deals with. So
Right.
I agree with your point, Seamus.
Thank you. Well, and I will say also, by the way, you just mentioned a moment ago that you like A Quiet Place or enjoyed A Quiet Place. Great film. You have very good taste. Those are all solid films.
Thanks.
I'm disappointed to hear the prequel was bad because I haven't seen it yet. But yeah,
Sorry.
with slasher films, there is something that seems so silly about it because in my mind, the idea of horror is you're really trying to figure out a very horrifying scenario that will be intriguing to people where they go, oh my gosh, what would I do? So when it's a film like, what would you do if you bought a house and it was demon possessed? How would you handle that? What would that be like psychologically? Or even if you get into kind of like Twilight Zone, Black Mirror episode stuff, trapped in a simulation, this type of thing where you really start to get into the mechanics of like what makes us fear things on a psychological level. I think it's fascinating.
That's a good point. It just reminded me of something.
But then when it's like, what if somebody stabbed you? It's like, yeah, I wouldn't like that. Like,
I
what
would
do you want me
die.
to say? That's so boring.
It is boring.
Mercer,
No,
what were you
actually,
gonna say?
I think that the psychological element. Yeah. Okay. So my favorite movie of all time, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. My dad was such a Trekkie. I saw it when it first came out. I was 5 years old. I mean, you shouldn't have probably brought a 5-year-old to see this movie.
That explains
And I
a lot,
remember
Mercer.
being scared out of my mind because there's the thing. Khan used this thing. It was like this grub, like termite thing, and he put it in their ears, and it would wrap around their cerebral cortex, and it would serve as like a mind control. And so you saw this thing coming out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. So it was
actually scary.
It is scary.
Oh
Yes. I didn't have nightmares, but man, I definitely did my homework and did my chores after that.
That is legit scary. Oh my goodness, 5-year-old Mercer, what a vision. All right, we're rolling into the Twilight Zone here, but first, if you have not done so, please subscribe. Please give us a big thumbs up on this episode if you enjoyed having Seamus on. I think we might have to have him back. He's fun. This has been great.
I'd love to be back.
Super fun time. And yeah, so give us a thumbs up. We would love that. Twilight Zone. Who wants to go first? Seamus, did you prepare a Twilight Zone? Did Tom?
Okay, so I have an answer to this question about a headline that you have read that reminds you of the Twilight Zone or a media story.
Okay.
There have been so many, I'll be honest. There have been too many. And now
we feel that way.
Now when we're in an era where it is just acceptable, not only acceptable, mandatory to say that men can get pregnant, it's difficult to read any headline that shocks you.
Yeah.
But there was one, and it just continually ramps up. You keep having these Twilight Zone-esque moments over and over again. And I would say for me, the most recent one, I can't remember which publication this was. It was certainly a left-leaning one, but it wasn't the Daily Beast or just some completely shamelessly biased garbage rag. It was a publication that's actually considered to be relatively respectable. And after the Trump assassination, their headline was "GOP seethes after another Trump assassination attempt." I just went, I actually cannot believe this. I was shocked by that. I was like, all right, I don't know where this goes, but it's not somewhere good. That is wild.
Why are they so upset we tried to kill their candidate?
Yeah,
I know. They're like seeds, and there is something so hilarious about like you're gonna try to make us look like the bad guys, dude. There was if I had a moment that I could also point to that wasn't as insane, but was also very funny. I believe this is after the first Trump assassination attempt. they started publishing headlines. There were a couple different outlets that tried to push this narrative and it just never caught. But it was about how the Secret Service thwarted an attempt by the KKK to assassinate Obama years and years ago. And it was just so transparently attention grabbing and attention seeking and narrative reframing because everyone just saw that Trump just survived an assassination attempt.
Yeah.
And the Democrats sat there and went, well, why should the leader of their party be the one who survived an assassination attempt? I want the leader of our party to be the one who survived an assassination attempt. So they tried pushing this story. No one cared about it, thankfully. But I just thought it was like at a birthday when you have to give a spoiled child who's present a cupcake so they also feel like it's their birthday and they don't cry too much. It felt like that for the Obamas and for the press, where they also had to have their assassination attempt to boost their poll numbers.
Oh my gosh. Cannot play well. Yeah, it is. It's like a bunch of spoiled children. And I think we live in a time where like every Babylon Bee headline has come true. And it must be difficult as a satirist actually to feel like you have anything original or that won't happen.
It's tough. It can end up being outdated. But the thing is, it's not. It was actually interesting. It's not outdated. It just turns out to be true. So it actually ages very well in a sense. But there is an issue with that. I think the hardest thing in the world is satirizing a large moment that was almost kind of funny or cheeky on purpose. So with Trump going to McDonald's and working there, that was a brilliant stunt. I thought it was hilarious. We could have gotten a lot of views if we did a video on it, but I just said, look, we're not going to make something funnier than what happened there. We're just going to leave that issue alone. Sometimes we have to do that. But with the left, I mean, we just released a video.
He's the most memeable president ever.
Yes.
He is. But when we did a video yesterday on white dudes for Harris, which I thought was really funny.
I haven't seen it yet.
Those guys are hysterical. They're just funny on their own. But yeah, with Trump, part of what you have to do because he's so funny is I think the trick to making good satire about him is satirizing people's reaction because it's so over the top. They lose their mind. So I think it's actually much funnier to make fun of the people who are upset by Trump than it is to make fun of Trump because making fun of Trump has just kind of been done to death.
Yeah, that's why that assassination cartoon was so funny because the guy.
Thank you.
Oh, look at Trump. Exactly. That was awesome.
He thinks this is going to make us impressed. What a loser.
You just need an Obama cartoon figure going, I want to be shot at too. All right. All right, Mercer, Twilight Zone.
I'm going to give 2. I mean, here's the thing. We already heard from our Diocese of San Diego that they're going to ban the use of their facilities from any Catholic homeschooling parents.
One of my all-time favorite
Catholic dioceses preventing Catholic parents from using because they don't want to, it's bizarre. Well, apparently this is going to continue. The Diocese of Tyler, Texas, which once had Bishop Strickland, but the Pope kicked him out. The Diocese of Tyler has informed all parishes that sponsoring homeschool groups is no longer permitted on diocesan property. So here's my first reaction to this would probably be a big fat middle finger. But my second reaction to this would be we need homeschooling groups to suddenly coordinate and form new synods and then ask to use the property as a synod don't say you're a homeschooling group. You're a synod on synality. That's my little recommendation.
I love it. Synod, the new term.
But my second little Twilight Zone, Bishop John Stowe of Lexington, Kentucky, who has endorsed the Equality Act. And, oh yes, he's the only one to do so.
He has the trans hermit too, right?
He's done it for years. This is not even a new thing. No. And if you'll remember, he made the news this summer when it came out. That's actually unintentional, but so wonderful. Supporting
fourth commandment here. Let's be careful.
Supported a transgender hermit, right? That was the whole thing over the summer. Well, now he gave a speech condemning Christian nationalism, and the National Communist Reporter, or the National Catholic Reporter, I get those mixed up so easily, had a whole article about this just talking about Bishop Stowe bashing Christian nationalism. And he's so frustrated because he goes, quote, I belong to a church that does not engage in partisan politics. In this election, as in others, that involves a lot of tiptoeing and a lot of walking on eggshells. Oh. But Bishop Stowe, don't worry, he's not going to walk on eggshells.
No.
He says, because only one political party in the United States has put forth a candidate who endorses and embraces and spouts the language of Christian nationalism.
Hitler.
What?
Yeah.
He said, to
brave,
promote Christian
stunning.
nationalism requires that people live in fear, not only for the desire for what might have been, but put in fear for what is coming. So I just thought I'd share with the audience a little understanding of what maybe I believe in when I say I like Christian nationalism. Okay? Are we ready for this, people?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
Let's hear it.
Patriotism is a love for everything to do with our native land, its history, its traditions, its language, its natural features. It is a love which extends also to the works of our compatriots and the fruits of their genius. Every danger that threatens the overall good of our native land becomes an occasion to demonstrate this love.
That's
and
beautiful.
that is Pope John Paul II.
I was going to say,
a
that
Catholic
sounds familiar.
saint, and that comes from his book Memory and Identity. So, Bishop Stowe, promoter of Equality Act and transgender hermits, or I don't know, a canonized saint.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we'd be in a better place if more trans-identified people became hermits and just stayed out of public life and didn't try to influence policy. That might be better for the rest of us. Just hide away.
The thing is, the trans hermit, part of the trans hermit thing was that he wasn't actually hermiting very well.
He identified as a hermit. He identified as hermiting. He or she, I don't know.
The hermitage was empty.
This is for someone who's a hermit. That's the point.
The hermit's ministry was like musical theater at the local, and you're just like, wait, where?
You can't make that up. Yes,
no, you can't even make.
The notorious tradition of hermits.
Here's a crazy thought. A Catholic bishop who doesn't know the difference between male and female, maybe we shouldn't take their guidelines on politics anyway.
Yeah, that's good
very true.
principle.
That's very true. Well, and this is something I've said in the past. I haven't touched on this for a long time just because I've commented more on current events than my root philosophy here. But I'm a firm believer, and I've said many times in the past, that leftism is just a word that we give to social decay. It's a euphemism that we use to describe that. 10, 15, 20 years ago especially, if you could not answer the question, what is the difference between a man and a woman, you would either be considered mentally unfit because you were insane or because you were mentally disabled in a significant way. Now, you're actually
Supreme Court justice.
Required. Exactly. You're a Supreme Court justice. You are required to be unable to answer that question in order to function.
Yes.
It's not just that people are allowed to be foolish. It's not just that people are allowed to not know basic truths. They are required to deny them.
Amen,
Preach
brother.
it. I am totally with that. All right, I'm going to finish up my Twilight Zone. In the tradition of Pogo, I had 3, but we are over time. So I'm going to go.
Listen, we've been mansplaining over you this whole time.
No, that's my job, is to just sit and listen to you as a minority demographic. I am here to learn. I'm here to learn.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. I'm going to go.
You are still racist, by the way. I haven't absolved you yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I will be doing penance and making reparations. The check's in the mail, Seamus.
Of course,
you
the
got
Irish
it.
guy says
All right.
that.
All right. I'm going to go with, I found my demographics. This is my last one, Jessica. This was great. So we're talking about fertility rates and remote work status. This study just came out across 8.6 million employed women. It turns out that among women who are employed and have a commute, just under 8% of them gave birth in the last year. Women who are employed and work remotely and do not have a commute, that was up almost 12% gave birth in the last year. That's me. So thank you, CatholicVote, for fighting the fertility winter and allowing us to work remote as needed. So that's just my big thing. So this is one way that Elon Musk, we can start to increase the birth rate.
CatholicVote is pro-family.
You are very pro-family. So a little shout out to my demographic. Babies rock. It's good times. Seamus, do you have children? I didn't even ask.
Do I have children?
Yeah.
I try to be super careful about what I put out there about my personal life just because of doxing.
Oh, right. I'm so sorry about that.
No,
that.
It's okay. It's okay. You didn't know.
Little personal question. All right. On that,
my kids are always think, "Why do you dox yourself?" I'm like, dude, I got more guns than acres. Come on, let's go.
And he has a lot of acres up there in Petoskey. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Seamus, it was a pleasure to have some Seamus rants. We might just fire Pogo. This has been awesome. And just kidding, Tom. We want you back. We miss you.
Coming for your job.
Yeah. Because it's a
He's
great
going to want me
job.
deported. He's going to be like, send the Irish back.
Great. Oh, yeah. I love the cable knit sweater, too. You're in costume. It's great. All right. So if you want to check us out, please check us out at, where am I? I can't even finish the show. Loopcast.org. No, just go to YouTube. YouTube, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell. And also check out FreedomToons.
Just going to let you sweat here on this.
Yeah, I know. I can't even do this. All right. Thanks, Mercer. On the off-ramp. The best thing you can do for us is join the Champions Club, so make sure that you go over. Rosie's going to put that in the chat for us. We are supported by our champions. Thank you to everyone in the chat who donates monthly. Also, pray for us. That is our number one weapon. Pray the rosary for our country. Join the novena, Catholic Vote, and St. Fidelis, St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us, and we will see you 11